Hello! In this clip from our Just You webinar, The Power of Professionalism, Cultivating Civility in Legal Practice, Kari Sheehan discusses her thoughts about how to keep civility with clients and how to deal with incivility. If you want to see more Just You videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Civility with client relations and communications is a big thing. This is Rule 1.2. This is one of the ones that we can violate with our unprofessional or uncivil behavior. This Rule 1.2 tells us that the client is the boss. It tells us that the client controls the objectives of the representation. The lawyer counsels the client on how to achieve those objectives, meaning the lawyer can help advise regarding the means to get to the objectives. But it tells us that the client is the boss. So if the client controls the outcome or the objectives, whether that be to settle, go to trial, not take a plea, take a plea, those are all the client's decisions, not you as the lawyer. The lawyer can only advise and hope the client listens. So the client is the boss under Rule 1.2. And a lot of lawyers do not like this. We think we went to law school, we run the firm, we know the law. Now you have some client telling you what to do that's just using Google as their legal advice or their advisor, and there starts to be a clash. And that's when the lawyer does something saying, well, this is a good settlement, you're going to take it. I'm going to tell them you're taking it. And you've just violated Rule 1.2. You can't let those emotions, you can't let that uncivil, civil, and unprofessional behavior overcome or overtake what we know in Rule 1.2 is the client is the boss. That client controls the objectives. Lawyers shall consult with the client on how to get to those objectives or pursue the objectives. And so they counsel on the means. That's why we're called counselors. We counsel clients of what to do. We don't tell them what to do. We counsel them what to do. And they get to make the decision on what is to proceed forward. And we as lawyers just have to accept their decision. And this can sometimes be difficult, especially when it comes to whether to settle a case, take a plea, which you may think it's the best deal they're ever going to get. And the client still says no. And you have to say, okay, the answer is no. Again, you can counsel, but you have to follow the client's direction. And this is where it can breed that incivility and unprofessionalism to pressure the client to do something they don't want to do, to really take it a step too far and bully them into something they don't want to do. Or doing against what the client tells you. You just say, well, no, I'm the lawyer, you're doing this. And so those are where we can run afoul with professionalism, civility, and particularly Rule 1.2 when it comes to it. We also have to remember, too, that civility and professionalism can also violate if we have incivility or unprofessionalism. We can violate Rule 1.4, which is our communication rule. We have to remember we have a duty to promptly communicate with our clients the good and the bad that happens in their case and our representation of them. Remember, bad news does not get better with age. And just because a communication is going to be hard to deliver to the client doesn't mean you shouldn't or deliver it to the client then and there. Now, yes, you can say if your client, is having a bad day, maybe they had a family member just die, you can delay a day and tell them maybe the next day or when they're in a better mindset. But delaying for months at a time, forgetting, or just saying, I didn't want to tell them the client's going to be mad, that's not a reason to delay. We have to be prompt in our communications, and we have to be prompt because, again, going back to Rule 1.2, the client's boss. They have to tell us how to proceed and what they want to do. And if they're not informed of what's happening, the good and the bad, they cannot make those decisions under Rule 1.2. So we have to have this communication. Now, the other thing with communication is, too, some lawyers are great communicators. Most lawyers are terrible communicators. And the problem is we deal with the public, we deal with laypersons who don't understand the ins and outs of the legal system. They understand the ins and outs of different things, but as for the legal system, they don't always get it. And so we have to tailor our communications to the sophistication of our clients. This means that when you talk to a client, if they have an 8th grade education, you have to tailor it down to an 8th grade education level for them to understand. This can mean not using words like motion and limine, not yelling at them, not doing different things like that. but tailor it down to where they understand what's going on so that they can participate under Rule 1.2. So again, gearing it to that sophistication, telling them the good and bad news. Bad news does not get better with time. And just the overall expectations that come with working with a client. Some of the best practices to consider, especially for Holy Rule 1.4, return client calls within 24 to 36 hours or, 48 hours, somewhere in there. And this can really help because if you delay it, you may forget it. And you don't want to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month or two before you return a client's calls. You want to do that prompt communication, or you could violate Rule 1.4. You could also, if you have a more sophisticated client, send them drafts of stuff to show you you're working on stuff. Send them a 30-day status letter. Make sure they're kept informed. Because if you don't inform them, they're going to get mad, which is going to cause a heated conversation, which could cause you to be unprofessional and uncivil and violate the rules. So we really have to take into consideration and think about how can we uphold these rules and do what's right for our clients and make sure we stay above board. Communications with difficult clients is one of the hardest things. I will say when I was a practicing plaintiff's lawyer, I had a client very hard to communicate with. Now, in his defense, he had a severe brain injury. He would call me every day, yell at me, ask me why the case is not settled. Now, mind you, the first time this happened, I had the case for like a week. I didn't even have a complaint on file. Like there wasn't even the turnaround time for that. And he'd call, yell, ask why the case wasn't settled yet, and then fire me, hang up on me. 30 minutes later, he'd call me back, or a few minutes later, he'd call me back and apologize. And every time he fired me, I said, your file's downstairs, come pick it up. Your file's downstairs, come pick it up. Because I knew he was going to call back and it would be okay. And we eventually did settle the case for him and he remained a client. But at the same time, it was not an easy communication because of the brain injury he had. But that didn't mean I wasn't supposed to communicate. It didn't mean I could stop communicating. I still had to conduct myself civilly. I could have gone off the rails by my annoyance and yelled at him, been uncivil, been unprofessional, and not communicated, and then violate all these rules, prejudicial to administration of justice, lack of communication, everything. But I didn't. And so that's that part of the professionalism, really taking our emotions, dialing them down, and being professional and civil in every encounter, even with difficult clients and difficult client demands. We have to remember our civility and professionalism come first. So if a client asks you to do something that violates the rules, just say enough's enough or say no, because you don't want to get yourself in trouble. If the client starts to yell, if the client starts to be uncivil, don't escalate to their level. Keep it civil. You can only control yourself and your own actions. You cannot control someone else. And you're only responsible for yourself and own actions. So if you remain civil and professional, hopefully those around you will see that and bring their conduct down to that. But knowing when to say enough is enough, we can fire clients. We can fire difficult clients. And just knowing those boundaries and your own civility is what's going to help you not run afoul with the rules of professional conduct in those scenarios. Because otherwise, it can go off the rails pretty quickly when it comes to different things like that. So we've got to really think about it. So this is responding to incivility, just some best practices to kind of think about if you do encounter incivility or unprofessionalism in your encounters with other lawyers, with clients, with the judiciary, with opposing counsel, anyone in between. If you let them get to you, they automatically win. Haven't you ever heard that before? Like your parents may have said way back when, or a friend or a spouse, significant other, someone may have said, hey, don't let them get to you. You're better than them. Stay professional, stay above board, don't think to their level. Keep that in mind. And we also got to remember, this is our profession. It's our career. It's not personal to us. And that is why, too, you should never represent yourself as a client, because then that's personal. We need to keep the business and personal almost separate when it comes to the emotions. So only taking cases where you can separate business and personal may be a best strategy for you, because otherwise, sometimes when you start to mix them, you're going to do stuff unprofessional. You're going to let stuff get to you easier. You're going to fly off the rails easier. You're going to say, well, this is personal to me. This is, and those emotions start to come. And that's when the unprofessionalism comes. So keeping business and personal separate can be a good thing. not representing yourself, maybe staying away from representation of family law members in some instances as well. I know a lot of lawyers have policies that they don't do stuff for family, which I can say is probably not a bad policy. I've been there, done that, regretted that decision several times in my career as well. But we've got to look at those different things. Also, too, another tip, smile, or better yet, ignore the incivility. If someone's being uncivil to you or exhibiting those signs of unprofessionalism, ignore it. It's kind of like a 3-year-old throwing a tantrum. Let them throw the tantrum on the floor. Walk away. When they're done throwing the tantrum, come back and have a civilized conversation. There was one attorney I was dealing with once. He would call me. He was yelling. He wasn't yelling at me. He's just yelling at situations. But I was getting the brunt end of it because I was the opposing counsel on the phone, just yelling and yelling and yelling. Finally, I just started hanging up on him. He'd call back and he'd say, "Why'd you hang up on me?" I'd be like, "You're yelling. Call me back when you can have a civilized conversation." And then finally, it stuck with him that I wasn't going to put up with the yelling, the uncivilized behavior, the posturing, the trying to be overly aggressive that wasn't going to get us anywhere. And so setting those boundaries, ignoring, not engaging can really de-escalate uncivilized, unprofessional conduct. And that's part of that always fighting up, not fighting down, not thinking to that aggressor, to that person's level. Have compassion. Maybe the other attorney or the other person that has the incivility is going through a lot that you don't know about. No karma is a thing. Keep communication open. Talk to opposing counsel. Believe in karma and professionalism too. Outsmart, stay ahead, prepare. If you're prepared with the background knowledge, the cases, the law, you don't need to be uncivil. The ones who are yelling and boastering and being loud and they're not really stating facts. They're usually not stating law. They think their conduct will overshadow the fact that they have nothing to support their arguments. So being prepared can really take that away from them and really de-escalate an uncivilized or unprofessional situation too. Being nice can too. Play the game. Outsmart, outthink, out-research, out-prepare. Be that person, not the person who hasn't prepared, so they just think they have to do this, bells and whistles or theatrical presentation because they don't even know what they're talking about half the time. So know that. Follow the rules, be professional, make sure you outsmart, and check your own attitude routinely. We don't want to be the bully. We don't want to be that person. So check that too. If you do encounter someone who's being uncivil, not communicating, or different things, just some tips, get documentation, because then you can take that to the court, the disciplinary commission. You need to document the behavior. So say, for instance, you've requested something several times, they're not responding, send an email, letter that says, "I called you X amount of times. You have not had the courtesy to return my call. I still have not received the documents." You're documenting that this attorney's not providing or this person's not. If opposing counsel sends late night faxes, knowing with that, you're not going to respond and ask for an 8 a.m. response time, you send something like, saw you in court yesterday. You said you'd fax me the following documents. You did so at, state the time they came across, 11:44 p.m. Certainly you would have known I would not be working at that hour. We have not had a reasonable opportunity to review them. We're taking additional time. So those tactics can be unprofessional too. Sending stuff on a holiday, late at night, asking for a short response time, being that basically jerk when it comes to litigating, just meet that with documenting their actions. Because when you document it, now you have proof that they did it, that you can submit to disciplinary commission or the judge for sanctions if it leads to that. Some other things too, like the last one on there, it can be a basic as saying, "I spoke to attorney X and told them I will not accept the 5 p.m. fax notices, and that if he does it again, I will seek sanctions." So you're memorializing the communications. If you talk about it verbally, put it down, because we need to do those things. We also just need to recommit everyone to being civilized. Maybe this means talking about it in your firm with your young lawyers, older lawyers, all your lawyers, even staff being civilized, like them having a good attitude, accepting the civility, professionalism in their own career and conduct too can really help. And it can breed job satisfaction.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next clip.